I'm making ribs today, but not the normal way you might expect me to make ribs. Today, I'm making them in the oven, and I'm also making a Guinness BBQ sauce. Yeah, I'm making the ribs in the oven today. The main reason is because it's pretty windy outside, and I just don't feel comfortable firing up the smokers when there's this much wind, gets smoke blowing through the neighborhood and people wonder if there's a fire. So I'm just trying to be considerate. Plus, I haven't done a rib video where I've made them in the oven before, and making them in the oven is extremely simple. You're just gonna not get as much of that smoke flavor. You could use some liquid smoke, but I'm gonna skip that because we're making a killer barbecue sauce today, a homemade Guinness barbecue sauce. So first, let's get these ribs rubbed up. This is 1 rack of St. Louis cut spare ribs. I've removed the membrane, trimmed it up a little bit, but it's looking pretty good. The rub I'm gonna be using today is Bob's Smokin' Southern Barbecue wing and rib rub seasoning. I like this rub. It's got just a little bit of sweetness, and that's gonna go nice with that barbecue sauce later. So I'm just gonna get a decent coating on these ribs, nothing too heavy. And we're not going to be saucing the ribs at all during the cooking process. We're only going to sauce them when it's time to eat them. You can sauce them during the cooking process if you want. This time I'm not going to. Turn it over, get the back side. Again, not going for a super heavy coating of rub here. All right, let's transfer this to a rack so we can get it in the oven. Put my ribs right on this rack here. And one of the reasons you want to use a rack is to allow the air to circulate around this, cook the underside of this without it laying in any juices. If you don't have a rack like this, you can crumple up some foil and put it under there, or you can just lay some carrots and onions underneath, create a base for it. So let's head over to the oven and get this in. All right, our oven is preheated to 225. Let's go ahead and get our ribs in. I'm just going to pour about 1/2 cup of water in this pan to create a little bit of moisture in here, just like you would with a water pan in a smoker. So those St. Louis ribs are going to bake in the oven for about 2 hours before we check them. At that point, we'll decide, do we need to wrap them or wait another hour or so? It's probably going to be about a 4 to 5 hour process in the oven today. But while we're waiting for those, we're going to go ahead and get started on our Guinness barbecue sauce. What I'm starting with in the pan here today are 3 cups of Guinness. Choose your favorite Guinness. I'm using the Guinness Draft Stout. I'm using this one. To this, I'm going to add 2 cups of ketchup and 1/2 cup of honey. Next, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of a brown mustard, 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, 1/4 cup of molasses. Molasses always looks like crude oil to me. 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 2 teaspoons of black pepper, and a teaspoon of hot sauce. Pick your favorite hot sauce. And I'm just going to start us now on medium-low heat. I'm going to stir this up. All right, let's increase the heat to about medium-high. Want to get a good boil going, and then we're going to reduce it to a simmer. All right, we are just starting to boil here. I don't know if you can see that it's actually kind of jiggling. We don't want to get this too hot. There's a lot of sugars in there. And now we're going to reduce this down to medium-low again until we get a simmer. There we go, a nice simmer going. So we want to keep this on a low simmer, probably for about 30 minutes. Want it to thicken up and want to stir it every couple minutes here. A lot of sugar in here. We don't want anything to burn. So I'll bring you back in 20 or 30 minutes when we check this and go on to the next step. All right, so our barbecue sauce has been simmering for about 1/2 hour. You can see it's reduced a little bit, which is nice. That's what we want. Now I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to let this cool off the burner. I'm going to strain it and put it in the refrigerator until our ribs are ready. All right, our ribs have been going for 2 hours. Let's have a look. Ooh, good smell coming off there. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more water to the pan. I'm also going to spritz these right now. And I want you to see those little dark spots right there? If you ever get those on your ribs when you're cooking them, that is just a little bit of that blood that's inside coming out through a puncture or something, so don't have to worry about that. Nice and gentle in the oven so I don't spray everywhere. This is a 50-50 mix of water and apple juice. Put a little more water in there, like I said. Not a lot. You can see right down here, we're just starting to get some pullback from the bone, so we've still got a ways to go. It's only been 2 hours. I'm not even gonna do a flex test on these yet. I'm gonna wait another hour. So in about an hour, we'll see how these are doing and decide then, do I need to wrap them or am I just gonna go completely on the rack the whole time? So let's get these back in and cooking. All right, these ribs are at the 3-hour mark. Let's have a look. So I want to do a little bit of a flex test here. Just see how tenderness is. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. What I'm gonna do now is I am gonna wrap these, I decided, so I'm gonna take this out of here and we're gonna wrap these in foil with a little bit of that apple juice water mixture. All right, so I have 2 layers of foil here ready to wrap this rack of ribs. Just wanna give it a little bit of moisture here before I wrap it up. Just like that, let's get this back in the oven. All right, it has been 4.5 hours. The ribs have been wrapped for an hour and a half. Let's open them up and see if we're done. Oh, getting a good smell off these. Oh, they smell really good. So I'm just gonna take my Thermapen here and probe between the bones. And we are feeling mighty tender there. That is looking good. And I want to do one final little flex test here. Yes, and you can, hopefully you can see that. Very flexible. They're almost ready to break in the center. Get the foil out of here. These are looking good. I'm going to transfer these to a cutting board and we're going to get that sauce out and cut some ribs. All right, let's cut into this and see how the ribs look inside. All right, there we go. Nice and juicy. Hope you can see that. Obviously, we're not going to have a smoke ring. We weren't using any charcoal, any wood, anything like that, but really tender looking, very juicy. I think I should sauce some of these up now. All right, here are the ribs with a little bit of the sauce on the side, and I'm just gonna drizzle some on top too. Yeah, I know this is just for looks sometimes, but it looks good and it's gonna taste good too. Turn this here. Yep, time to say it. It's time to taste. All right, here we go. We have our oven-made St. Louis ribs with Guinness BBQ sauce on it. Let's see how we did. This is gonna be a napkin kind of tasting. That's really good. Ooh, I like that sauce. That was really good. Great flavor on the ribs. This is just how I like them, where they pull away from the bone as you bite. I don't like fall off the bone ribs. If you wanted to take these to that fall off the bone state in the oven, I would go another 30 to 45 minutes. And you can check them. And I wouldn't do it completely in foil. I might take them out with about 20 minutes left and let them finish on the rack with no foil, no wrapping. But for me, these are just right. Do I have anything on my face? Really tender, really juicy. There is the difference though. You can tell that these are not smoked out on the kettle or on the offset or anything like that. You just don't get that smoke flavor. You also get a different kind of tenderness. I find that when you do them in the oven, you actually retain a little bit more moisture, especially if you wrap like I did. Out on the kettle or the offset or whatever you're using, I feel they lose a little bit more moisture, but they actually end up a little more tender. It's a fair trade-off. They taste great, and so do these. Gotta say, one of the takeaways from this video for me is that Guinness BBQ sauce is just awesome. So if you can't cook outside for some reason, maybe you don't have a smoker or a kettle or a gas grill even, don't hesitate to make your ribs inside. Just make a terrific sauce to go with them. Maybe this Guinness BBQ sauce, and you're not going to be disappointed.